I'd like to call to order the Monday, July 6th meeting of the St. Lawrence County Board of Legislators. I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Akers, Mr. Fay, and Mr. Forsythe. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Mr. Sheridan.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would like to offer a resolution appointing Harry A. Smithers II for the vacated seat of the St. Lawrence County Board of Legislators, District 5.
Is there a second? Second by Ms. Curran, Mr. Akers, Mr. Forsythe, Mr. Venetia.
And Mr. Reagan.
Mr. Reagan. We'll let you know.
Okay. And Mr. Reagan, I'm sorry. Mr. Sheridan.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say a few words about the candidate that the search committee chose. We interviewed some very fine candidates for this seat, but we chose this gentleman here who's part of the fabric of District 5, and that includes Governor Oyster. He has a stake in the game in that district. He is, our search committee felt that he would serve this legislative body and the people of St. Lawrence County and his district very well. Harry is the co-owner and operator of Smithers Tire Service, and he's owned it from 1977 to this present time. And before that, he was a 7th grade teacher at Augsburg Free Academy, but he decided to join the family business. Him and his co-brother own that business. And he was educated right here in the North Country at our schools. He got a BA degree from SUNY Potsdam. He majored in chemistry and biology and graduated in 1973. And then since then, he's also got some like 30 hours of postgraduate work, study at SUNY Potsdam at St. Lawrence, at the College of St. Rose. And as far as the community is concerned, he's got a lot of community service that goes on and on. I'm going to just touch a little bit of what he does. He's been a member of the Fowler Baptist Church since 1981. He's actively involved. He taught Sunday school for 10 years for children and 20 years with adults. He served as a deacon and a trustee multiple terms. And he served from 1993 to 1995 in the Governor Board of Education. No, excuse me, 1993 to 2005. And so that's like 12 years. He's been involved in things like Community Softball League from 68 to 95. He played roles in church plays, community interfaith courses, quite involved in other things as well, but to make it short, I'll talk to you a little bit about his personal life. He's been married for 42 years to Julie, I believe. And Julie and Harry have 4 grown children. And he does enjoy gardening and hunting. I don't know whether, we didn't get into it, but whether that gardening happened because maybe she said 42 years ago when they got married that you help me garden in the summer, I'll help you hunt in the fall, because he likes to hunt, he says, well. So he enjoys gardening and hunting, and that means maybe he's a pretty strong believer in the 5th Amendment as well, because he does handle guns. He has lots of references. They're good references, many of them. The one that stood out in my mind, and I think the rest of the committees, was Henry Leader, who is the person who Harry will be taking his seat here. And so that was something that I thought was important, that he feels confident enough that he lists Henry Leader as a reference. He spoke about his political philosophies a little bit, and He has a strong belief in the role of government in our lives. He has a strong belief in the role of government in our lives, and he believes we must maintain an environment of freedom within the guidelines of the law. And he also said that we must serve to protect and defend the citizens as to their safety and ability to explore opportunities to succeed. And one of the things that caught my attention with Mr. Smithers' view that the spending should be in accordance with income. In other words, a balanced budget. So that gives you a little bit of a thumbnail sketch on the new legislator that will be sitting next to me, representing District 5 Governor. I would ask you all to welcome sitting right here. Great sense of humor too, so you know.
Thank you, Mr. Sheridan. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Seeing none, all in favor of the resolution? Any opposed? Opposed? The resolution is carried. Mr. Smithers is now the legislator from District 5. If you would come forward, Mr. Smithers. And the Deputy County Clerk will swear you in.
I'm going to have you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Harry Smithers II, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of the St. Lawrence County Legislature
of the office of the St. Lawrence County Legislature
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Thank you.
We'll take a couple of minutes while Mr. Smithers signs the book.
Reagan. Forsythe.
Here.
Lightfoot.
Here.
Sheridan.
Here.
Smithers.
Here.
Denisha.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Akers.
Here.
Fay.
Here.
Haggard. Piacco. Here. Burke.
Here.
Arquette.
Here.
Terminelli.
Here.
Curran. Here. 14 present.
And let the record show that Legislator Haggard is excused from tonight's meeting. Mr. Denisha, would you lead us in prayer?
Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity to join together this evening. We're grateful for the opportunity to proudly serve the residents of St. Lawrence County, especially during these trying times. We are grateful for the dedication of all those who have been and continue to be on the front lines, helping to combat this dreadful pandemic that has taken so much from so many. Things we've all too often taken for granted have become important again. Visits with friends and family, going to church, going out to dinner, attending graduations, shaking hands, hugging one another. Simple, normal things that we used to take for granted are once again special. Dear Father, we ask that you send your creative spirit upon us and enable us to draw upon the wisdom and experience of yesterday as we respond to the questions and concerns of tomorrow. We ask these things in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, through whom all things are possible.
Amen. I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda by Mr. Forsythe. Right, it was on. As I said, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda, and it's moved by Mr. Forsythe, seconded by Mr. Sheridan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the June 1st and June 29th board and special board meetings.
So moved.
By Mr. Denisha, seconded by Ms. Curran. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. At this time in the meeting, we'll have an update on the COVID-19 issue by Dr. Mcguire.
Hi, everyone. I'll just give an update where we are with cases and things. So last week at about Thursday, I had reported that we had our kind of lowest case report for a week since we started with the response. This week, since the 30th, we have had 7 new cases. 5 have been through like traveling. So all of our own kind of county residents just coming back from the high advisory states. We currently have 8 active who are in the isolation process, with one in the hospital, and 3 of the 8 have symptoms of those that we're monitoring. So 5 are asymptomatic. We do know of 1 positive traveler, not from this county, who is here, and we are doing kind of the monitoring, and we have new contacts that we're then kind of doing the monitoring for because of this person. So the most recent actions we have had is working with advisory, trying to get those people into quarantine. And so sometimes those people call our office. Sometimes we hear from some of the others that hear about these people, and then we do try to educate and make sure that they can be just in quarantine to try to prevent the spread. And so that's really what we have going on from our department. We have just over 19,000 people tested, and 213 have been through the isolation process. So if there's any questions, that's what we have for a status update.
Does anybody have any questions of Dr. Mcguire? Mr. Akers?
So Dana, been getting calls from constituents about the Bassmasters. Could you talk about any involvement that your office, public health, has had in preparation for this event?
Yeah, so last Friday, we met with Bassmasters, with the other county officials, and spoke with them to hear about the safety plan that they have in place should the competition take place. And they have a safety plan that follows the format that the state has put out. And so they went through what they're going to do for people, for the place, and processes, and what they have for PPE, for the social distancing, for all the cleaning and things like that. So they have a pretty solid plan for the competition. And so we did chat with them just to see what their plan was.
So if I follow up, if I may.
Follow up, certainly.
So Dana, so the arrangements for the housing for these individuals, I believe there's 87, and then other participants that are coming. Will the places that they're staying be notified or of the procedures? A lot of these individuals stay at houses or rent houses too. Can you speak to that?
Yes, I can a little bit. So people coming up for the competition, I believe they'll be staying at some hotels, motels, campgrounds, and then some like rented houses and things like that. And so I believe that everyone who's going to rent to them knows that they're a Bassmaster, like an angler for the competition.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Burke?
I'm mute, John.
John, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Did Bassmasters give you any indication as to how many people might typically be traveling in addition to the fishermen themselves?
No, we had some discussion about that as a group after the call with them. I have heard that in the past there is some of the family members, but I do not know just how many travel just themselves or with family. I don't know that.
I had heard, Dana, and maybe you could confirm this, that they are going to be tested, or at least our request was that they be tested when they leave the Cayuga event. But is that occurring now as we speak, or?
So they stated that the anglers would arrive here in the state around the 9th or the 10th. Their first competition is in the Cayuga County, with the guidance of if you're traveling from another state that you have to quarantine for athletes. They're still able to do the traveling, and then they need to maintain quarantine as much as they can when they're not just in the competition or when they're traveling to another state. But the requirement from the guidance is that when they enter our state, they must be tested just within 24 hours. So they will be tested when they get to that first county. We had a discussion, and the suggestion is going to Bassmasters that they should test again prior to leaving the Cayuga County. And that's because when you test in the first 24 hours, that could be in the first 1 to 2 days of that 14-day period that you could get the symptoms. And sometimes at that point, you're not kind of far enough along to show a positive test. So the suggestion was, just prior to coming to our county, they could retest again, and they should probably be at day 10 through 12. And that would be closer to the end of that 14-day period, when if they were going to have some of the symptoms, or if they could be positive, that would more likely show.
Dana, that's based on the assumption that once they come into New York State, they're going to stay in New York State and not travel out of state again. So, I mean, how do you reconcile that?
So I asked those questions, and we discussed that with Bassmasters. And what they described is that these are kind of athletes, and they have so much going on. There's only a few days just prior. And so because they're at such a high kind of level, their main goal is to be part of the competition. So they don't want to jeopardize anything that they could do, so that they couldn't be part of the competition. So that doesn't guarantee anything. They seem to have quite a few kind of like processes in place, and feel pretty confident that when their kind of anglers are here, that's what they're here to do.
And the family members, Dana, that may accompany?
That I'm not aware of, just how many they would be kind of traveling with. That's probably still a question we should ask.
And that's a source of potential risk as well, is that not?
Well, if they're, going to be from a state where there's the advisories, yes.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Terminelli.
I was just going to ask, is there a way through the Bassmaster organization, if we, are they able to poll their anglers and see between the 9th or whenever they arrive in New York State for the Cayuga tournament and the 23rd when they're coming here for the Waddington tournament? Is there a way to identify which anglers have remained in New York State during that time and which ones have left?
I think that could be a question that we ask Bassmasters, yes.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Ms. Curran.
They did say, Dana, the other day when we were on the phone with them, that none of their anglers would be leaving New York State once they got here. They did say that they would all be staying in between when they got to Cuba County and the time they came here. They did say that they wouldn't be leaving.
Anyone else? Mr. Forsythe.
Thank you. Dana, after the discussion, and I know we had it Friday morning with Bassmasters, we've had a weekend to think about it. What concerns as a public health director of St. Lawrence County would you have with this? After you just announced 5 people who traveled outside the area have come back, what concerns would you have?
So I think Bassmasters as a competition just has a pretty solid plan. They seem to have everything in place. So all of the things that are going to happen during the tournament seem pretty solid. I think if they can get tested prior to coming to St. Lawrence County, that would add just an extra layer just for us, because like I said, they're going to be traveling between the 9th and the 10th. If they get tested closer to, like the 21st, and around there, that's closer to the 14 days where if something should show, I think we'd have just kind of better knowledge of that. We have seen people, when we put them in quarantine or in the isolation process, they might be positive at day 4, 5, 6, or it might be at like 13, 14. So I think it is a really good idea just to retest. I don't know how many people they'll be traveling with. That is something that I don't know. So, that because, I don't know what the family members, will be doing while they're at the competition. They did say that it's like pretty well kind of blocked off. And so it's just people at the competition. So there could be added people just in our county that might be from states. And like that's what we're kind of seeing for the caseload right now.
Okay, and one more scenario. What if 1 or 2 Bassmasters does test positive? What do we do? What do we do?
Well, so to me, they wouldn't be allowed to do competition, and they'd have to go into isolation, just like we always do.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Dr. Mcguire? Mr. Burke.
Dana, I guess I'm wondering how we reconcile, all the other events or most that I'm aware of, Seaway Festival, the St. Lawrence County Fair, events that to a large extent attract local people. I mean, I wonder how do we reconcile this from a public health standpoint to allow outside entities to come in when in our own community, our own county, there is an abundance of caution in canceling some of the major events.
Right, so I think this event this year, it's going to be much different than in past years. There's no festival, there's no gathering. So I do hope that it's marketed in that way, that this is just, just a sporting event. This is still a high risk kind of event to have here, due to having some people who are going to come here, from the states that are in the advisory. But as we were waiting for the guidance for sports, just like some of the other types of sports, this guidance kind of follows, what has been allowed. And so when you look at it from a sports competition point of view, it's not a festival like it has been in the past. But it still does bring a lot of risk to the community.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Rita?
I would like to say that some of the people that come into our community that we don't think about, we have traveling doctors that come in to fill shifts from New York City, from other states, from Montreal. We don't test them before they come. The people who drive the tractor trailers in here to deliver our food and supplies, we don't test them when they're here. We don't know where they're coming from, and we don't ask anybody about the transportation stuff. I think that Bassmasters has done a really nice job of thinking about how to handle this. Dana has done a ton of work, and thank you, Dana, for all the hours you put into this. And I think that it's an important thing for our community to make sure that they will come back again. And I think that this is no more risk than having people come in to deliver things or to have the doctors that come here. But the difference is we're going to test these people. We're going to know where they are. And we're going to have a plan to make sure that they don't interact with the public the way that other people do when they just come here. I passed a New Jersey plate today that was coming in here. There were people from Florida, all different plates that I've seen in St. Lawrence County. I've never seen so many from different states. I think that we're right to put a lot of caution into this, but I think it's no different than the people that are coming here to see their families who are not following quarantine.
Mr. Arquette?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm certain that the governor did not come to this decision lightly, nor did he come to this decision without the guidance of many, many medical professionals. And, I think it sends a message, two things: that he recognizes the great job that our public health department has done here in St. Lawrence County, along with the citizens of our county, and really adhering to the advisement. So again, I think that with that being said, I think we can move forward carefully and successfully under the guidance of our public health department, and make this a successful event.
Thank you, Mr. Arquette. Ms. Terminelli?
Dana, is it correct that no spectators will be allowed?
I did clarify that with Bill and Brooke, so there's no spectators, no events that are going to be kind of around this type of event.
Okay, and to follow up, do we have, just to be proactive so that we can educate the public so there's not chaos and confusion when the tournament comes, do we have a plan in place for press releases to make sure that the public knows wholeheartedly that they shouldn't be traveling to the location for the tournament?
I don't know if Brooke wants to speak to this at this time. I know you're doing some things, Brooke.
Brooke Rouse, are you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, we discussed briefly, and we've been in touch directly with Bass about being sure that messaging is consistent to let the public know that there will be no spectator opportunity at Whitaker Park. And in the plan from Bass, they've outlined exactly how they're going to set up the park so that even if you were to arrive there, you would see nothing but barricade walls, and the stage is even going to be rotated so people would not be able to see anything. So I think just in them blocking off the space, even if people do come, they're not going to stay. So yes, we're covering all those pieces of both messaging, but also the format of the physical event.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, Dr. Mcguire, thank you very much. Moving right along, communications. Did you have one that you wanted to read?
I have citizen participation.
Okay. In citizen participation, we have Mr. Kevin Berry who'd like to speak to the board.
Perhaps some of the legislators saw the recent letter in North Country Now titled, "St. Lawrence University Professors Express Solidarity with BLM Protesters," in which over 100 professors accuse our country's law enforcement agents of murdering people of color, of using violence against peaceful protesters, of racism and brutality, of horrific killings. Since our nation's founding, as these 100+ professors claim, such anti-police rhetoric and invective puts the lives of law enforcement officials at risk here in St. Lawrence County and all over the nation. These professors target not only our police officers, but the entire United States, whose history, traditions, and culture they sum up and dismiss as 4 centuries of white supremacy and structural inequality. The stated goal of these professors is to dismantle the perceived structures of white supremacy that bestow unearned privilege. They state that they will reconsider both who is in the classroom teaching and the hiring practices that have failed to break the hold of white supremacy on their campus. Instead of reviling law enforcement and the institutions of the United States, which as university professors they should by rights be upholding and defending, the 100+ professors who signed their declaration with love might consider that charity begins at home, and that the best, the easiest, and the quickest way to remove the perceived hold of white supremacy on their campus is to remove themselves immediately from their positions of privilege so that professors of color can take their place. Perhaps new hires would devote their time to teaching their subjects rather than to drumming up racial resentment on campus and in the county. The professors might also reconsider their support for Black Lives Matter, whose anti-law enforcement ideology was given expression in the murder of 5 Dallas police officers on July 7th, 2016, during a Black Lives Matter demonstration. Gunned down in cold blood were Dallas Police Department officers Lauren Arons, Michael Kroll, Michael Smith, Brent Thompson, and Patricio Patrick Zamaripa. Instead of encouraging the murder of police officers, these St. Lawrence University 100+ professors might consider that the lives of police men and women matter too.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Seeing none? Did you say you have something?
I have 2, yes.
Okay.
The first email is from Thomas Goki of Canton. Thank you for the opportunity to make public comment for all the important work that the Board of Legislators does.
I want to ask the board to take action to prevent the tidal wave of evictions and foreclosures that are coming. St. Lawrence County has seen its unemployment numbers spike to nearly 17% as a result of the pandemic and economic crisis. Many more, through no fault of their own, have suffered a loss of income, some dealing with the health crisis or death within their family. Across the country, 4.3 million homeowners were not able to pay their mortgage last month. Nationally, nearly 1/3 of renters could not afford to pay rent in April. These families are not deadbeats. They aren't paying because they can't pay through no fault of their own. The eviction and foreclosure procedures is already starting in New York State. Although Governor Cuomo sort of extended the eviction moratorium through August, the way he went about doing that was ineffective and the eviction process is already starting. August is only a month away. While it would be ideal to address this crisis at the national or state level, so far that has not happened, and it doesn't look like we can count on it happening. For this reason, I want to urge the Board of Legislators to do what we can at the county level. I am not an expert on the nitty-gritty of the procedure or the law, so I want to refrain from making nitty-gritty proposals for fear that I am not in the best position to identify the best solution. For what it's worth, the experts in the county have publicly stated that creative solutions are possible and realistic. I will risk recommending two very general solutions as a layperson and as a neighbor. First, I urge the Board of Legislators to suspend the authority of the sheriff to enforce evictions and foreclosures for the next 12 months, while others, better and more creative solution can be worked out to address the root causes. Second, I urge the board to make COVID a defense against eviction or foreclosure. This would cover both a loss of income and illness. The renter or homeowner should be able to assert COVID as a defense without an onerous process. A simple good faith assertion should be sufficient during the crisis. Economists are estimating that if we don't intervene to prevent it, homelessness could rise by 40 to 45% in the next year. This is not good for anyone. As the eviction and foreclosure process ramps up, we will be forcing families in St. Lawrence County to become homeless right before winter during a global pandemic. The problems this will create will be much more significant to the county. This isn't good for landlords either. As they struggle to find new tenants, we will see the cost of rent plummet. Private equity firms are sitting on $2.5 billion of cash that they are referring to as dry powder, ready to swoop in and buy up millions of foreclosed properties at bargain basement prices. We saw them do the same thing after the 2008 mortgage crisis. We shouldn't be helping Wall Street steal houses from families in St. Lawrence County, and the sheriff's office shouldn't be Wall Street muscle. I urge you to take action, to think creatively, and to be willing to push the envelope to prevent this next crisis in the making. I will make myself available to the board to help in any way I can. Thank you again for all you do. And the next email is from Becky Allen of South Colton. Dear St. Lawrence County Board of Legislators, as this community reels from the tragic death of Triana Somerville, there remains many unknowns and many concerns. That being as it is, I am asking you to please consider the following as an early starting point to ensure justice for Triana and prevent future tragedies. First, I understand you recently filled some of the Department of Social Services vacancies that had long been unfilled due to earlier funding cuts. This decision was, by your own acknowledgement, long overdue, as caseworkers were assigned to up to twice the recommended number of cases, making it impossible to adequately serve our families in crisis. While I applaud that decision, I would ask that in the future you engage in hiring practices that will ensure these positions are filled and vacancies do not occur. When vacancies occur in these critical positions, it results in significant disruption in services and, as we all know, the potential for grave and tragic consequences. I would ask specifically for your public comment to ensuring these unmanageable caseloads do not occur again under your watch and that vacancies do not go unfilled. Second, I am familiar with minimal orientation period provided to most new employees hired at the county. Again, this is in part due to letting positions go unfilled, resulting in overwhelmed staff and thus no mentorship to help new staff orient. Additionally, new staff are often saddled with unreasonable caseloads and expectations. This has to be remedied if we want DSS capable of meeting demands and the safety needs of our children and families. Right now, we are asking DSS staff to do the impossible under undue stress and hardship. The opposite needs to occur. We need to support them so they can do their important work. Again, this does not have to wait on the findings of this case. A simple review of orientation periods, caseloads, employee retention, etc., will help illuminate what is currently happening. I would expect nothing less than a full and uncompromised commitment by the board to ensure that DSS has not just adequate staffing, but a very well-oriented and well-trained staff to ensure optimal functioning. Thirdly, I would encourage the adoption of a robust and impartial bias training protocol that occurs throughout an employee's tenure. I would also encourage adoption of chart review and intervention observance by independent evaluators to ensure bias does not impact the quality, type, or extent of services provided. Finally, as indicated above, the death of Triana Somerville is a horrible tragedy and deserves the highest attention to ensure justice is served. I understand that there may be reasons to limit some information, but making this process as transparent as possible is of utmost importance. That being the case, I would also encourage you to address the public on what has been done and what will be done to achieve justice for Triana and her loved ones. This should include your plans to complete review, again by independent evaluators, of how DSS responded to multiple reports of abuse over multiple years, and if it did or did not follow protocol. As leaders in this county, you have an important and critical duty to help ensure the safety of our community's most vulnerable citizens, children. I am confident you share that view and hope to hear from you in the very near future on how you will accomplish that.
Thank you very much. We will now move to the presentation of resolution with Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign an amended contract with the ARC Jefferson St. Lawrence for the operation of the public transit system and modifying the 2020 budget for the planning office. Move for its adoption.
Seconded by Ms. Curran and Mr. Akers. Any discussion? Seeing none, all roll call.
Forsythe?
Yes.
Lightfoot?
Yes.
Sheridan?
Yes.
Smithers?
Yes.
Denisha?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Akers?
Yes.
Kay?
Yes.
Piacco? Yes. Burke?
Yes.
Arthwhite?
Yes.
Terminelli?
Yes.
Curran?
Yes.
Reagan?
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
The resolution is carried. Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution amending the St. Lawrence County Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board bylaws and structure and move for its adoption.
Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Terminelli. Ms. Curran. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2020 budget for the Office of Emergency Services for fiscal year 18, State Homeland Security Grant Program, and move for its adoption.
Is there a second? By Mr. Forsythe. Ms. Curran. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Tanisha,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Piacco. Yes. Burke,
Yes.
Arquette,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution is carried. Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2020 budget for emergency services to purchase land in the town of Hammond for the construction of a telecommunication tower and move for its adoption.
Is there a second? By Mr. Sheridan and Mr. Perkins. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Tanisha,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Piacco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Arquette,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution is carried. Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Environmental Systems Research Institute, Inc. to provide installation and configuration support in the Department of Emergency Services, modifying the 2020 budget for emergency services, move for its adoption.
Is there a second? Ms. Curran, Mr. Forsythe? Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Smithers,
Yes.
Tanisha,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Piacco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Arquette,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
The resolution is carried. Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution proclaiming July 19th through the 25th, 2020, as Probation, Parole, and Community Supervision Week, move for its adoption.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Akers. Mr. Reagan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2020 budget for the county clerk's office for postage costs associated with the Department of Motor Vehicles, and move for its adoption.
Is there a second? By Mr. Forsythe, Mr. Akers. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tanisha,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Piacco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Arquette,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
The resolution is carried. Mr. Sheridan.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a one-year extension to the current contract for preschool special education transportation services, and I move for its adoption.
Is there a second? Second by Ms. Curran. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mr. Sheridan.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution modifying the 2020 budget for community services for funding from the CARES Act Provider Relief Fund. I move for its adoption.
Is there a second? By Ms. Curran. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Piaco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Arquette,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
The resolution is carried. Mr. Sheridan.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution modifying the 2020 budget for community services for the local lieutenant staffing agency contract. I move for its adoption.
Is there a second? By Mr. Akers. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Piaco, Burke,
Yes.
Arquette,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Curran, yes, Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution is carried. Mr. Sheridan.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign an amended contracts with New York State Office of Mental Health Providers for Family and Peer Support Services to modify the 2020 budget for community services. I move for its adoption.
Is there a second? By Ms. Curran, Mr. Akers. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Fay,
Yes.
Piaco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Arquette,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Curran, yes, Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution is carried. Mr. Sheridan.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a participation agreement with North Winds Integrated Health Network, IPA, Inc. for a behavioral health care collaborative. Move for its adoption.
Is there a second? By Ms. Curran, Mr. Fay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Sheridan.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution proclaiming June as Elder Abuse Awareness Month and move for its adoption.
Is there a second? By Mr. Denisha, Ms. Curran, Mr. Burke. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Sheridan.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution modifying the 2020 budget for the Office for the Aging for Families First Coronavirus Response Act funding for the St. Lawrence County, and I move for its adoption.
Is there a second? by Mr. Benicia, Ms. Curran, Mr. Perkins. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Bianco? Yes. Burke?
Yes.
Barclay?
Yes.
Terminelli?
Yes.
Curran? Yes. Reagan?
Yes.
Forsythe?
Yes.
Lightfoot?
Yes.
Sheridan?
Yes.
Smithers?
Yes.
Denisha?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Akers?
Yes.
Fay?
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
The resolution is carried. Mr. Sheridan.
Chairman, I have a resolution modifying the 2020 budget for the Office for the Aging for Coronavirus and Relief and Economic Security Act funds under CARES for St. Lawrence County. Move for its adoption.
Is there a second? By Mr. Benicia and Mr. Burke. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, excuse me, roll call, please.
Burke?
Yes.
Barclay?
Yes.
Terminelli?
Yes.
Curran? Yes. Reagan?
Yes.
Forsythe?
Yes.
Lightfoot?
Yes.
Sheridan?
Yes.
Smithers?
Yes.
Denisha?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Akers?
Yes.
Fay?
Yes.
Bianco? Yes. 14 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution is carried. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2020 budget for the Public Health Department to accept additional funding for the early intervention program. I move this resolution.
Is there a second? By Ms. Curran, Mr. Fay, Mr. Burke, Ms. Terminelli. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Barclay?
Yes.
Terminelli?
Yes.
Curran? Yes. Reagan?
Yes.
Forsythe?
Yes.
Lightfoot?
Yes.
Sheridan?
Yes.
Smithers?
Yes.
Denisha?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Akers?
Yes.
Fay?
Yes.
Bianco? Yes. Burke?
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
The resolution is carried. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2020 budget for the Department of Highways to reflect adjustments in the year 2020 to 2021, shift state funding. I move this resolution.
Is there a second? By Mr. Forsythe, Mr. Denisha. Any discussion? Mr. Burke, did you have your hand up to second that?
No, no, I didn't.
Okay. I'm sorry. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Terminelli?
Yes.
Curran? Yes. Reagan?
Yes.
Forsythe?
Yes.
Lightfoot?
Yes.
Sheridan?
Yes.
Smithers?
Yes.
Denisha?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Akers?
Yes.
Fay?
Yes.
Bianco? Yes. Burke?
Yes.
Barclay?
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
You make cordless ones. They watch. Please
You all set? Okay, the resolution is carried. Mr. Akers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign an agreement between the New York Environmental Protection and Spill Compensation Fund in the County of St. Lawrence, New York, regarding certain tax delinquent properties. I move this resolution.
Is there a second? By Mr. Forsythe, Ms. Terminelli, Ms. Curran. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Akers?
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution conveying an easement to the New York Power Authority for the construction, installation, and future repair of roadways to access Smart Path Moses Adirondack transmission lines in the town of Canton, owned by St. Lawrence County. I move this resolution.
Is there a second? Mr. Forsythe, Mr. Sheridan, Ms. Curran? Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Arquette, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. I'd like to abstain from the voting in this due to my primary employment.
So noted.
Mr. Terminelli.
Anyone else?
Mr. Terminelli.
Ms. Terminelli?
I will also be recusing myself from this vote.
So noted.
Mr. Perkins.
Perkins.
Mr. Perkins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This would, if I could ask the county attorney on this, did he talk to the Power Authority about the easements for the multi-use trails for this, for an easement?
Mr. Perkins, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. I did actually reach out to a representative from the New York Power Authority after our meeting. We're to have additional discussions. Until we wrapped up those discussions, I don't believe the easement will be signed, but we are going to continue to have those discussions. There is some question as to the actual ownership of the land in question that it appears that our trails advisor or trails coordinator is interested in. So we're going to continue looking at that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Akers?
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution establishing the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act budget for the program year 2020. I move this resolution.
Is there a second? By Ms. Curran. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Akers?
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign the 2020 to 2021 local sponsor signature form as part of the grant application to the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. I move this resolution.
Is there a second? By Ms. Curran. Mr. Perkins? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Akers?
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2020 budget for forestry for additional funding awarded to the Snowmobile Trail Grant. I move this resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Sheridan, Ms. Curran, and Mr. Arquette. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Curran?
Yes.
Reagan?
Yes.
Forsythe?
Yes.
Lightfoot?
Yes.
Sheridan?
Yes.
Smithers?
Yes.
Denisha?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Akers?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes.
Bianco? Yes. Burke?
Yes.
Arquette?
Yes.
Terminelli?
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
The resolution is carried. Mr. Akers?
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign 4 separate contracts with Clarkson University, SUNY Canton, SUNY Potsdam, and St. Lawrence University to provide public transportation. I move this resolution.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Smithers. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Akers?
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with the Workforce Development Board for a sublease agreement for space in the One-Stop Career Center. I move this resolution.
Is there a second? By Mr. Smithers, Ms. Curran, Mr. Burke, and Mr. Perkins. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Akers?
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a lease with the Workforce Development Board for space at the Human Services Center for the One-Stop Career Center. I move this resolution.
Is there a second? By Mr. Denisha. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Akers?
Mr. Chairman, I offer resolutions for setting a date for a public hearing on the proposed local law A for the year 2020 for setting salaries for county employees. I move this resolution.
Is there a second? By Mr. Forsythe? Mr. Burke and Mr. Perkins? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we're finished up with the presentation of our resolutions, and we'll go to the county administrator's report.
A few things to share with you this evening. Tomorrow we will begin week 17 of the COVID-19 response. And we are 110 days since the first case in St. Lawrence County. And if you think about a third of a year is 121 days approximately, we're closing in quickly on that being a third of 2020 already. The burn ban that's in place until tomorrow evening has been requested to be extended. That will go until Sunday, July 12th. And there'll be a reassessment by emergency services who are checking with the district deputy coordinators and in turn reaching out to their fire departments to make sure that that is warranted. To begin with, there were 82 fires, I believe, in 3 weeks. That was approximately 27 per week. We're down in the last 9 days to 17. So I think that has helped. I think it might be difficult to identify that's exactly the reason, but a decrease certainly helps our departments. On Wednesday, July 8th, the county will launch the new county website. There is a new look and a new feel, and this is a project we have delayed several times based upon a number of things related to COVID-19. But you will still be able to access the COVID-19 data. There'll be a COVID-19 center that folks will be able to access. We'll put out some information on that. Tomorrow morning, Vacancy Review Committee meeting. Vacancy Review Committee will be meeting. There are 11 vacancies to review. One of the 11 is a revisit, and there are 8 departments represented by the request. So just in keeping, I think I mentioned at the last meeting, approximately 50 to 60 positions at any given time of the 806 positions approved in the budget are vacant. And that can be for a variety of reasons. So in June, taking out the temporary positions, that number was 68. This month, that number is 59, just by the way of update. Now moving on, or going back for a moment to COVID-19, the enforcement team, which I'll remind you is the sheriff, the county attorney, and myself, have seen a tremendous uptick in the number and level of reporting associated with the structure in place to adhere to the executive order and the laws in place currently. We had 106 in the last 6 days. And there are, as of 4 p.m. today, over 261 reports submitted. The main organizations or locations that we are hearing about include Walmart, all locations around the county, Lowe's in Potsdam, but also some in Ogdensburg, Dollar General, and Price Chopper. So the variety, and there's many other behind that. There are Sunocos, there are some Stewart reports. Most of those are centered around folks either not social distancing or not wearing masks. And some of the concerns are related to the employees of these businesses not enforcing the mask wearing. So as we have been working to enforce these, they have received letters from the county attorney's office, and they have in some instances received visits from the sheriff's department. Our approach has been to both educate and raise awareness about what the requirements are, and as we've moved through the changes of the phases, to be able to make sure that these organizations are aware of what's required. So that is something that's been challenging in terms of where do we go next. The reopening task force, which is comprised of some of the businesses and business representatives and Rick Rouse at the chamber, discussed this very issue late last week. And the interest is in making sure that folks are both aware of what's required and able to enforce. That sometimes may mean that they need additional PPE, which the county has many masks and hand sanitizer available. But also it's a challenge for the folks that are trying to move about, following the phases and adhering to the requirements. Wanted to let you know that July 21st, 2 years now, July 21st to the 29th, virtual training will be conducted for all staff at social services that is called Recognizing Implicit or Unconscious Bias and what it means in our daily lives and in the workplace. So this is an area to raise awareness again with staff, and also we're looking at extending that opportunity in that time period to all departments. That's something we'll keep you apprised of as it becomes available. If there's no other questions, that's all I have right now.
Any questions? Mr. Forsyth.
Thank you. I guess it's probably for the county attorney or anything. It's the enforcement of masks in public places, Walmart, Lowe's, the ones you mentioned. I've had quite a few people stop in and say, what's going on? Why is this person, most of it's patrons that aren't wearing the mask. When confronted, can become ugly. What's the legality? What is an enforcement practice for this? I don't know.
Chair, would you like me to answer?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I think everybody is aware that there have been numerous executive orders that have been issued by the governor during the course of this. In fact, right now, including 202, we have up to 202.47, and if you add in the ancillaries, we have 2 others that have been applicable to COVID. So you're actually talking about 49 different executive orders that have been issued that have either been directly on point or extensions of prior executive orders. So indicated right now we're at 202.47. 202.47, actually 202.45, extended 202.35, 202.34, 202.41, and all of the provisions from 202.28 back to 202.01, which were all the social distancing, the mask wearing provisions, and everything else. Those provisions are very interesting. There is an individual mandate that is included in the executive order that requires that each of us, if incapable of socially distancing ourselves from others by essentially 6 feet, must wear a mask when in public. That's the individual mandate. Separately, there are several business mandates. Those business mandates, if you read the language, aren't exactly mandates. There is a provision in there that says that a business has the ability to take your temperature should you attempt to enter into the structure to patronize the location, and they may obtain it for purposes of denying you service in the event that your temperature exceeds a certain level. Separately, there's a mask wearing provision, very similar language, indicates the business may require that you wear a mask prior to entering into the structure and being provided service. But you'll note that it utilizes the word may. It is not a must. The business is not legally responsible to enforce. The business has the authority to do so if it so chooses under the executive order, but that is discretionary, which leaves obviously the enforcement team, compliance team, in a very difficult situation. The individuals have a mandate. The businesses technically do not. It is discretionary for the businesses to exercise. So when we go to the business, we try to educate them about their abilities. They can theoretically deny service. They can require temperature checks without the prospect of having allegations that they have denied services unduly. But outside of that, it really puts us in a difficult situation. When we receive our complaints, we notice that the complaints don't identify the individuals or that we're not wearing masks, only that some unnamed or unnamed patrons entered into a structure, were not wearing masks, and that the business refused to enforce them. As I indicated, the business may or may not enforce it. But the individual is supposed to be wearing a mask. That is true. The executive order states that individuals are supposed to be wearing masks, but they cannot space greater than 6 feet. So you ask the question, what is the legality? What are the provisions? I hope I've answered it, that individually we are mandated to wear one, and we cannot stay more than 6 feet separated from an individual. But does business have an obligation? Doesn't appear so. I'll just note very quickly, 202.47, which was issued this past week, actually empowered certain state employees now to have police powers associated with the enforcement of the executive orders. Specifically, the governor empowered employees of the Alcohol and Beverage Commission. So those employees, with the suspension of certain provisions within the criminal procedure law, now take on police officer status, capable of rendering fines of $2,000 for the failure to wear a mask or comply, capable of potential arrest, and capable of shuttering businesses who are failing to comply with the provision. I will also note that even though there is a provision that says that the business may enforce with respect to patrons, there is a provision in the executive orders that says they must enforce with respect to their own employees. So if we get complaints associated with a business where the employees are identified as not having worn a mask, we will attempt to take action appropriately in those circumstances.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, one other thing. That's good? Lastly, I wanted to share with you, if you'll indulge me a couple of minutes, a story about a little girl who will be honored this evening. On Tuesday, June 23rd, Jeanette Rose Mcguire from Lawrence began the day as a normal 7-year-old girl and ended it as a hero. A trip to the river with her father, his friend, and 2 of her brothers began with glee and gladness. She was a proud big sister when her 4-year-old brother, Philip, became the first child in their family to swim underwater. She hollered to her father to share the excitement of his exciting accomplishment. John, their father, thankfully has a background in emergency services and quickly realized there was a problem. Philip was not swimming, as the current made it appear, but instead was unconscious and not breathing. John was able to instruct Rose to pick Philip up and bring him to John. Rose, without hesitation, without a thought to herself, jumped into action. She picked her brother up and carried him to John. She kept calm and focused, carrying the weight of her brother to the waiting arms of their dad. John, utilizing his emergency training, began compressions while still in the water and continued them while getting Philip up the river bank. After what was believed to be 3 minutes underwater and unconscious, he was brought back and began to breathe on his own once again. He has since made a full recovery. The quick actions of Rose and her ability to listen, react, and stay calm helped save her brother's life that day. She will be honored this evening with an Emergency Services Challenge coin and a nice certificate that Legislator Arpa was kind enough to sign for her. She's a member of the Lawrenceville community, and they're very grateful that she helped save Philip that day.
Wow. Tony? Tony, did you have anything to say?
Again, just a heartwarming story, and just so thankful that it ended well. And just, I'm very honored to be part of recognizing those types of positive achievements. And, you know, I hope there's many more to come. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Quite a story. Quite a story. Quite a little girl. Anything else? That's it?
For now.
Oh, boy. Are there any committee reports? Seeing none. Any old business? Mr. Burke.
Doesn't come under no old business, Joe, but Ruth was doing her presentation. I had a question on, actually it was Steve's component. Is Dana still there? I have a question for her if I might be able to ask her.
Dr. Mcguire, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Yes, she is, John.
Dana, Steve just articulated the conditions outlined by the governor for the legality of it. The wearing of masks and social distancing, and I may be wrong in this, but I don't think it's either or as far as the CDC guidelines are concerned. It's my understanding that it's both the wearing of the mask and social distancing as far as CDC guidelines are concerned. Could you clarify that?
Yeah, so you're supposed to wear a mask definitely when you cannot maintain 6 feet of the distance, but all of the recommendations go hand in hand. So you should always maintain 6 feet of social distancing and wear a mask.
And wear a mask, yeah. So independent of what the law might say, the responsible thing to do for the protection of others is to have social distancing plus wear masks. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you.
You want to answer that, Doctor?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Did you get that, John?
Yeah, I did, and I guess you know, if I might, Joe, just add one more thing.
Go ahead.
I saw that both Dylan and Keith were wearing masks, and I want to commend them for that. I think it's you know, and as legislators, we might want to consider setting that example. I don't know about anybody else, but I for one, it ruffles my feathers when I see people in grocery stores not wearing masks. And again, it's whether there's any enforcement ability to it or not, it's the responsible thing to do. And I just throw that out for everybody's consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Akers.
I think the problem with the mask is there are rules for some and there are rules for some that are not. And I think across the nation, you saw the hypocrisy of the rules with people being allowed to protest and being supported by the 1,300 doctors here in the New York metropolitan area that had said it was more important that they protest against racism than maintaining the six feet or the mask or whatever in the protest. So while churches have been restricted to 10 or 25 or not being available at all, or people are being arrested for opening up barbershops. So people see the hypocrisy of the whole thing. The documents that were sent to us by Dr. Williams that I read, there really wasn't any empirical evidence. There was a suggestion for there. And I think just people are just really tired of the hypocrisy of rules for some and rules for others that don't apply. And I think, so for those that are calling and complaining about the dollar store or the Price Chopper, as far as the county attorney and for Ruth and for the sheriff, you need to just tell them don't shop there. And the merchants will get the message. I was in Lowell's in Ogdensburg. There's a sign on the door, please wear masks. So I think the majority of people are going to comply. I was in Walmart in Ogdensburg, everybody that I saw had them on except for one individual. So it is what it is, but I think when you have your leaders, your governor, your mayors, and your town officials saying it's okay for you to be protesting for one thing, and then, well, we're gonna hammer you if you don't have them on another, and I think that's where people are confused, so I'll just let it go with that.
Anybody else? Thank you both. Any new business? Seeing none.
Mr. Chair?
Is that Mr. Reagan?
Yes.
Go right ahead, Mr. Reagan.
Are we going to bring up the funding for the Bassmasters tournament tonight?
I do not have it on my agenda.
We have a resolution prepared as requested. If someone wants to bring it up under own business, we can distribute that.
All right. The county administrator is advising me that there has been a resolution prepared if it is brought up under new business. Would you like to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
We can distribute copies to those present, and I believe it's available on Google Drive. Is that correct, Phil? And Dylan can screen share. As requested, there is a blank associated with the funding amount as a part of the discussion.
We're going to get this on the table first.
That would be appropriate, yes.
I'm the sponsor.
Before we discuss it, we'll get it on the table. Mr. Akers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer a resolution financially supporting the efforts of the 2020 Bassmaster Elite Series in Waddington, New York, and modifying the 2020 budget. I move this resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Ms. Kerr, Mr. Sheridan, and who else? Somebody from the, those that are not here, seconded it. Can you tell me who it is?
Perkins.
Mr. Perkins. And Mr.
Terminelli.
And Terminelli. Okay. You want to speak to this, Mr. Akers?
Certainly, I have not seen the resolution, but I do support the efforts. We have in the past supported the Bassmasters for 30,000. I know that the request was for 50, and 30 is in line with what I would support. I think the opportunities for adding additional revenue to the towns is going to be quite limited, but I do think that the importance that this is a nationally televised event that is shown on ESPN Plus, and I believe the Outdoor Channel. And I think it gives us national recognition. The recognition is that this is the number one, the nation's number one bass fishery on the St. Lawrence. And I think it's important that we support this venture. And I wholeheartedly agree that I'm glad that the amount of 30,000 was filled in. Thank you.
Yeah. You're looking at the previous years.
2018.
Yeah, flip it over there.
Okay.
Yeah, the amendment.
Is there any discussion on this resolution? Wait a second. Ms. Curran is first, and who, I've got this resolution up on the screen, so I can't see who's talking.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Go ahead.
I think you recognize Mrs. Kern.
Okay. Ms. Curran.
So I would first like to be added as a co-sponsor to this bill, please.
So noted.
I think that Mr. Akers is correct. It's very important for us to support this endeavor in Washington. It does give us the national stage for a bit of time, letting people know what we offer in terms of recreation and fishing. And it's kind of a little star on our lapel, if you will, of the county. And I would be happy to offer my support.
Thank you. Was it Mr. Reagan that wanted to speak?
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I would like to amend the resolution to make it $40,000.
Mr. Reagan is moving to amend the resolution to use the figure $40,000 in it.
I second.
There's actually no amount currently listed for the appropriation.
I think Kevin threw the number 30.
Yeah, I just speculated, but that's.
No, you made a mistake.
Made a mistake.
I was looking at last year's figure. So if you want to make a motion to add that to the resolution in the form of amending it, that would be fine. Is that what you want to do?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second it.
By Mr.
Perkins.
Mr. Perkins? Okay. The motion has been made to add the amount of $40,000 and seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr. Akers?
I can't support 40,000. I think that we've made it clear to the Bassmasters organizing people that they need to make an effort on their own, and we've supported this over the number of years. And I think particularly this year with our revenues being down from the COVID, and also because the inability of, there won't be any festival, there won't be any vendors, that the return on our $30,000 investment is mute at this time, other than the national exposure. I made it clear in discussions with Mr. Reagan that I would support 30,000. I would not support 35. I would not support 40. I will not support this resolution unless it's limited to the 30,000.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Mr. Arquette?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that what I'm assuming maybe what Jim was doing there was making a compromise. I believe that the organizers were looking for 50. The previous idea was 30. So I think he's making a good compromise here at 40, and I'll support 40,000.
Thank you. Mr. Burke?
Well, I guess I'm hoping somebody could possibly answer this for me. I'm really struggling to see who this is benefiting. There won't be. There's no spectators. There are no booths, so that our local businesses don't stand to gain. You know, there's been reports about money that might come into motels, hotels. But as far as the direct benefit to most of the people of St. Lawrence County, I'm struggling to see what that is. You know, and I look at their budget. They've got a budget. They got traffic control, so we have no spectators, but they've got in their budget traffic control $1,000. Emergency services, $1,000, portage on $1,500, advertising $5,350. So we in effect are giving a check to advertise an event that that we are basically saying is an advertisement for St. Lawrence County. So it's double dipping on the advertising because Bassmasters does their own advertising, and as it relates to the expenditure of money, you know, there was a $15,000 balance from $15,300, I believe, from 2019, and I didn't see that entry as a beginning point for this year. And then last year, if you can recall, there was supposed to be, after their budget was balanced, there was supposed to be upwards of $60,000 to $70,000 more that was supposed to be coming in. And again, I'm struggling to see it, especially like Kevin said, in a year where we're struggling with sales tax and trying to be cautious. I'm struggling to see how do we market this to the people of St. Lawrence County. I mean, what is it that we're telling them they're going to gain from this? National exposure is one thing, and I think Dave touched upon that last time. We'll take out $1,000 or $2,000 ad in the Bassmasters magazine, if it's advertising that we're looking for, but to pay for traffic control, emergency services, portage on, advertising, all the things that are in their budget, to ask taxpayers to support all of that. And I'm really not comfortable that there has been a good accounting of the money from past years. And again, I didn't see that entered in. I supported it last year. I voted because it was clear that our residents, I don't know from a business perspective how much it really benefits us. I don't know that, but I think that it was a nice event for many people in St. Lawrence County, but we don't have that this year. It's and I think, I don't know who said that, whether it was Rita, who said they're putting up barricades, so so there won't be anything that the people of St. Lawrence County can actually see, other than knowing that there's an event going on. So I would welcome any information that might help me see the benefit of this. But at the present, not hearing anything, or not hearing anything that's convincing, I have no intention of supporting this.
Thank you, John. Is there anybody out there that from Bassmasters that wants to respond to John? Or to make any statement at all regarding this?
This is Brooke.
You have the floor, Brooks.
I was trying to make notes, Mr. Burke, on your questions, but please remind me if I missed anything. And Bill Dashna is also on the phone, so he may be able to add or clarify anything else. Just a couple of points. The marketing budget, some of that was secured ahead of time for additional TV promotion. So it's not marketing for the physical event. It's to leverage the exposure of the event further for establishing the destination further. So it's not budgeted for the event. If you see the budget from last year, I'm not sure if that was forwarded. We just updated that at 5 o'clock. So I don't know if that was forwarded, but it's a huge cut. Typically over $20,000 is spent on marketing. So the $5,000 is just on what was pre-committed. The expenses associated with traffic control, porta-johns, can't remember what the other specific one was, that is just to assist with the tournament. And it was including a large, I wouldn't say a larger amount, I would say it's inclusive of making sure that traffic is controlled in that area when the anglers especially are arriving in the morning. There'll be a tremendous amount of just vehicle traffic to help the flow there. So that was included along with the porta-johns that are for the anglers and for the tournament. So we wanted to make sure to include some of those expenses still. The economic impact and ongoing impact, there is, I did only a lodging impact, which showed about $80,000 in direct revenue to our businesses. That doesn't include gas or food or any other expenses for them. So for our struggling businesses, we feel that it is an impact that will help them this year, more so than any other years. And the exposure is expected to increase this year because the ESPN and Bassmaster.com are receiving a lot more viewership because people are home more and because other sports and activities are not happening. And so this event is expected to receive more coverage than anything in the history of Bassmaster. And so again, it's not necessarily about this year, it's about future years. Trying to think what else you asked. As far as the tournament and the festival goes, it's correct. That was obviously a sacrifice that was necessary for the safety of the community. So we're really focused on the direct impact of the tournament and the individuals who are coming to participate and run the event. Was there anything else specific that I missed, Mr. Burke?
Well, the carryover from, if I might, Joe?
Certainly.
The carryover from last year, the balance from last year, when the budget was balanced, when all the obligations were met last year, there was supposed to be an additional $60,000 to $70,000 that came in, and you show, or the balance sheet from 2019 shows $15,300 and some odd dollars, and I don't believe that was a starting amount for this year's budget. So and again, because I'm on Zoom, I can't look it up line by line. But I did make some notes. Emergency services was the other one. That was $1,000, which, again, when we have our own residents there, there was no question in my mind that we needed to watch out for their well-being. But when anglers are out in their boats all day, I guess I couldn't help but wonder, why would we be funding emergency services? And the other big part of it for me, Brooke, is the risk that's involved from the COVID. You know, yes, the Bassmasters have met their obligation from the state standards, apparently, and I certainly trust Dana and our public health department and the people that represent the county who met with them. But there still is a fair amount of unknowns, and their testing is just a test is just a snapshot in time. It certainly doesn't. It's little comfort to me about the potential for people coming from out of the area bringing in the COVID virus. And I think if we listen to Dana's presentation tonight, it was, I think, 4 of the new cases were from people coming back into the area from hotspots. So again, I'm struggling to try to see if your constituents were asking you, you know, where's the benefit of this? Where is the gain for something they can't attend, they can't see? Where is the gain? Would we spend $40,000 just to advertise the North Country? You know, keep in mind, Brooke, that your budget promoting the North Country and promoting tourism, we already fund that. There is a fair amount of taxpayer dollars that goes towards the funding of promoting tourism. And again, I sit here and I'm thinking I must be the black sheep of the family here, because everybody else seems to embrace this, but I'm really struggling with it.
I'll just clarify, the emergency services budget line this year is $1,000, anticipating that some things may come up that we need. Typical years, it's over $5,000, so it's a substantial decrease, and it's just remains in the budget because we want to make sure that everything is done as safely as possible. It's not a specific contracted amount at this time. I would say that it is a marketing value. However, it also is direct economic impact to our lodging industry, which has been hit. I won't say the most because everyone's been hit quite a lot. So there is direct economic impact to the businesses in the county, and that's a major focus this year. In reviewing the Bass plan, and I hope I can forward it on, or maybe Ruth or Dana can forward it on to all of you. The plan also includes, and the governor's guidelines instruct, that the anglers and their families are to only be participating in the tournament. So they wake up, they're on the water, they're at the event, they go home, they pick up, you know, take out food, or we've offered to arrange for pickup, curbside grocery and things like that we can connect with the local businesses, and then they're back to their rooms and they do it again. They're specifically instructed that other than what they're doing for their sport, they're not to be out and about. And so that, I think, was comforting to see, both from the guidelines but also reiterated in the Bass plan, that's the intent there, that they won't be out and about. I don't know if Bill is on the phone. I don't know if he can speak to the budget items anymore.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I think you may have gotten the comparison of 2020 and 2019. And if you look to the right-hand side of that, to the bottom, it shows the 57,000 that Mr. Burke talking about. And those were balances from grants. And if you remember, 30,000 last year was used for the a little over 30,000 for the other half of the contract. We do have, if you remember, we do have a 4-year contract with Bass. So there's 2 more years. There's 1 more year of the Elite Series, and last one is the Northern Open, of course, which we should be able to take care of that ourselves. But there is 1 more year of the Elite Series. The Porta-John business is our thought to have bathroom facilities close to the stage area, which is fenced off, so that the folks there don't have to leave and go somewhere else. And it's all in the, you know, that's all in the plan for safety to keep, you know, everybody that's with the tournament and the pros right there at that very site that's all fenced in. So that's what that's all about there, and it's quite a lot less than the previous years where we have to have a lot more units. Don't know if there was another there.
Other than the starting budget, Bill.
Starting budget this year?
Yes.
And which part of it? We showed
the carryover, I should say, the carryover from 19, what you actually started with.
Okay, the RVRDA money that's 20,000. That is a reimbursement. We received that, so we're starting with that. Plus, we had a general balance of 6,800. That's $26,000, and that also shows on that 2020 budget that you have.
Well, and again, Bill, I if I might, Joe, it's what the budget showed from last year. The balance, the bottom line from last year showed $15,300 and some odd dollars, and it's the inconsistencies. You know, you're saying you started with 6,800 this year. It's for me. It's when we use taxpayers' money to fund this. I mean, I think, you know, what I do with my own checkbook is my business, you know, but I think when we use taxpayers' funding, we really need to make sure that there is a strict accounting of money. And I looked at last year's, the bottom line from last year is $15,300 and some dollars, and it doesn't reflect in this year's budget. And so again, I'm very uncomfortable with this. I really am.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the 15,000 is that you're talking about, because the final numbers, I mean, we're still getting bills at the turn of the year in January and February. So the final numbers have just been put together recently in a P&L statement, which we can furnish a copy of those. I mean, these are numbers that are accounted for. So, I mean, those balances, the $26,800, that is a clear balance as we have today. You know, and you people all deal with budgets. You know, your budget is one thing, and your actual expenses, because of certain things, are quite different. We went into last year's budget with an emergency services part of it not needing a lot because it was donated services, and then towards the end, we found we were going to have to pay substantially for that. And going forward, we'd have to do the same, and it would actually be much higher going forward.
Listen, we've got a couple of more people that want to get in on this conversation here. So if I can let Ms. Terminelli either comment or pose a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just looking over the expenses versus revenues updated spreadsheet that was sent out earlier this afternoon. And if I'm reading it correctly, it looks like the anticipated revenues, and that would be with a $40,000 commitment from the county, puts the revenues over the expenses by $13,200. So I guess what I'm asking is, if we were to make the commitment for $30,000, that would still put your revenues over expenses above $3,200. So is 30,000? That's a doable number, right, for this tournament to still happen and fall within your budgetary means that you provided with us earlier today. Is that correct?
Is it a doable? It is a doable, but what happens when you have no fund balance? As I said before, we have 2 years left of this contract. I don't know how we would start on the 2021 with almost no money to speak of. And there are commitments that have to be made well out front of when the tournament actually starts. And obviously for fundraisers, I'm assuming next year we could do a better job with fundraisers. It does take money or capital to put together fundraisers. So to answer your question is, yes, we can get through this tournament, but we're not in a very good financial state going into the next year's tournament.
Mr. Forsythe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Bill. Bill, for next year, didn't we talk Friday? There's a plan for the state coming up with 50,000 for something.
Yeah, and if that still comes through this year, we had plans of using it this year.
Okay, what's it called? Where's it coming from?
That was Market New York funds. We had plans of using it this year and not needing to come to the county for the 40,000. Okay, so that didn't come through for us.
Yeah.
I understand as verbally that it is available. It will be available for us next year, and if so, next year's sponsor fee would be taken care of by that, and a number of other items on the list, such as advertising, could be as well. And Mark is probably more able to answer that than me, but my understanding is that it would be available for us next year.
Okay.
Mr. Denisha.
Oh, I wasn't done, Mr. Chair, if that's all right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I still have.
Please, go ahead.
Other places. John, I'm not going to let you be the black sheep on this one. I still have concerns with people coming in from hotspots to St. Lawrence County. I thought I was eased Friday because I think what they're going to do and being outside and the format should work. But I have a hard time putting economic development over public safety. I have a real hard time. Then when I go to economic development, this was always sold in the past. On the sales tax, this is going to generate for St. Lawrence County. It's going to be overwhelming. I've heard several people talk about that in this room over the last couple of years. The sales tax generated from this tournament is going to be twofold. You wait till you watch July's sales tax numbers. You wait. There isn't going to be those sales tax numbers, but we're still going to fund it. So we're paying for an advertisement. I owned a business, promoted it with my own money. Never came to anybody asking for money. I know the outdoor handwriter shake quite well. That's the outdoor handwriter shake right there. I cannot, in good faith, vote to put public safety below economic development. I cannot, in good faith, vote to give 30,000, 40,000, whatever number this board comes up with, to promote another fishing tournament that I really think is going to promote Bassmasters much more so than us. Mr. Smithers, when we were interviewing, says, geez, a lot of your votes always look like you all agree on things. Welcome to the club. This is the club here, right here. So John, I won't let you be the lone ranger on this one. See, the longer we stick around, sooner or later we're going to agree on something. So I think it's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Mr. Denisha.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, the numbers are growing. I thought long and hard about this, and obviously addressing this to everyone. I've supported the Bassmasters since I've been on the board, but I think, I really believe that the risks outweigh any gains. David and I spoke about this earlier, and I truly believe that putting economic gain ahead of safety for our folks in St. Louis County is the wrong thing, and I will not be a part of that. It's contrary to what we've done for the last 2 or 3 months. Their fairs have been canceled. Augsburg canceled the fishing tournament. Messina has canceled theirs. The Seaway Festival. There's so many things that have been canceled. Graduations. We couldn't even have regular graduations. Now we're going to take money. And by the way, we had a discussion last week at the Finance Committee meeting about trying to do something about relief for some of our taxpayers that were affected by the coronavirus in regards to fines and penalties. That didn't get much traction, but now we're ready to give $40,000 to the bass tournament. Come back next year, I'll support it, but this year, no.
Anybody else? Mr. Rager.
Mr. Chair, as I said last week, back when the first Bassmasters tournament was held, the goal was to get St. Lawrence County and the St. Lawrence River on the international map as a destination for bass fishing. This tournament has been wildly successful. We were designated last year as the #1 bass tournament or #1 fishing destination in North America. It is during a year when most of the other tournaments have been canceled. It is particularly important to make this tournament move forward, since this organization has worked very hard to meet all of the public health safety standards set by both the state of New York and the county's public health department. What we're doing is we're investing in the future of our county. The amount of time that we're going to get devoted to St. Lawrence County on ESPN and in other bass fishing outlets is going to provide us with invaluable publicity and public awareness for years to come. The question was raised earlier, what is the benefit to the people of St. Lawrence County? The benefit to the people of St. Lawrence County is that our restaurants, our communities will benefit over the long term if we are wise enough to continue investing in our brand. For too long, places like Lake Ontario, Cayuga, all sorts of other places have invested heavily in building brand awareness of their fishing opportunities, and we lag behind. This is a golden opportunity for St. Lawrence County to put its stamp on the national awareness that we are the #1 fastest fishing destination in North America. And that will benefit our people and our businesses for years and years to come. In a year when many of our businesses are suffering and many of our retail businesses are suffering, it's important for us to make this investment in our future. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Smithers.
Okay, I'll jump in. I know I'm a newcomer, you have a lot more information on this than I do. However, listening to the concerns, I think that you've raised some valid concerns. I believe there is benefit, as you said, for this tournament, and I trust that it can be done safely. Last Friday, our daughter was home visiting with a friend, and we toured the Thousand Islands on one of the tour boats. They had caution, social distancing, wearing masks when you were seated. There were people there from various states, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Ohio. I think this can be done safely, and I think, Mr. Akers, if you presented 30,000 to me, listening to various comments, I think that is a compromise, 30,000.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Mr. Perkins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may ask Mr. Dashnaw a question?
Go ahead, sir.
Bill, I see that you have in the private sponsors, Walmart, St. Lawrence Federal, Pepsi, Blevins is pending. Also, the municipal funding of the town of Louisville, town of Waddington, Oswegatchie, Brazier, Market, New York, all pending. Do you have any dollar figures to go with that, or are they not contributing this year?
They haven't so far.
Have they given an inclination that they will?
I haven't.
A timeline of when they would know?
I haven't gotten, at this point, I haven't gotten any from any of them.
Have you been knocking at their doors to kind of prod them along, or?
Yes, and on the private sponsors, we'll touch base again. The biggest holdup from almost, well, I would say all of them, is that it was uncertain that we were going to be able to have the tournament. It's pretty much shut everything down. We do have some vendors that applied and paid their money early on that we'll have to return that to them and put their names back down for next year. But as far as the private spend, the municipal, we sent letters a few weeks ago to each and every one, every town and village in the city, and no response yet.
Okay. Well, I've struggled with this this year. I've always supported it. I wasn't sure if there would be a benefit this year or not, but I do believe with all the media, and the television, the attention we're going to be getting, I think it's going to help support us. I've noticed that there's very few boats around to purchase right now, personal watercrafts. They've all been purchased up. people are out buying and doing more family events now, staying closer to home. So I think this will benefit us. I'd like to make a friendly amendment if that's what it would be to
Mr.
the
Perkins?
amendment that we have.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
We have an amendment on the table.
Right, I'd like to.
Why don't we work through that one first? And
Well, I
then,
guess I wanted to amend the dollar
amend the
amount.
amendment?
Yes. If it, I don't know if it could be a friendly amendment, if that would be okay with Jim. I was looking at putting the $26,800, which would match the expense balance. And then hopefully other private businesses, knowing that it could move on, would also donate.
I would like.
Wait. Let's get this straight before we go any further, okay? You want to amend the amendment to remove the $40,000 and add the amount of $26,800, and you want it as a friendly amendment?
Yes, if it's okay with Jim Reagan.
It has to be a second.
Mr. Reagan?
Mr. Chair, I would like to keep the 40,000 proposal as the amendment.
Well, your friendly amendment is not well received.
Okay, so if I could actually make an amendment to amend the amendment for the $26,800 to replace the 40,000.
Is there a second? I see, Mr. Arquette.
Procedurally, Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that can happen without Mr. Reagan and myself who supported and I seconded. We're the only ones that can change the fact that there's an amendment on the floor, I believe.
Well, I have a hard time with how do you amend just a proposed amendment? It hasn't even passed.
Right, that's what I agree.
If I may.
Mr. County, wait a minute. Let's get an opinion here from the county attorney and see what kind of legal ground we're walking on.
Welcome aboard. You get into the minutia.
Mr. Button.
So I've consulted Robert's rules. Amend can be applied to itself, that is to a pending primary amendment, so that a secondary amendment or an amendment to an amendment will result. It cannot be applied to a secondary amendment. So the first question that was raised was whether or not it required Mr. Arquette and Mr. Reagan, who were proponents of the resolution, to agree. That would be the so-called friendly amendment. They have refused the friendly amendment. So does that permit Mr. Perkins to thereafter continue to push forward with a potential amendment of an amendment? Mr. Perkins can, as a secondary amendment, push forward an amendment to the amendment. It is possible. It would require a second. It would require that there be a vote on the amendment of the amendment.
Okay, so that was done and it was not seconded.
But you didn't ask for a second, though.
Huh?
In respect to this, Mr. Perkins, you didn't ask for a second to
I did.
Mr. Akers, you did.
Mr. Akers, procedurally, the chair did ask for a second.
So
Mr. Arquette actually asked for a point of information.
I think you thought he was.
On the question as whether or not it be amended.
So then the question still is there a second?
There is a second right here.
By Mr. Sheridan. All right, any discussion on the amendment to the amendment? And the amendment to the amendment reduces the $40,000 on the First Amendment to 26,800 on the amendment to the amendment. Are we all clear on that? Any discussion? Mr. Akers?
So I'm not sure where the 26.8, is Mr. Perkins saying that the county would commit to $26,800
That's my intention.
Yeah.
rather than 40,000?
Yes.
Right. Anyone else have any questions? Anybody not clear on this?
Mr. Chair,
Question?
just in order to avoid any confusion in the future, primary amendment is on the floor. The secondary amendment has been presented, that's the amendment to the amendment. There are no such things as tertiary or third amendment, so
Well, that's
no more amendments to the amendment.
something to look forward to, isn't it?
Unless one of them fails.
I'm assuming there are no further discussions on, Mr. Akers?
Just for clarification,
Quickly.
once again, so what Mr. Perkins is asking for, and the second by Mr. Sheridan, is a county commitment of $26,800 for this tournament.
That's correct.
Correct. Thank you.
All in favor of the amendment to the amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand, please. These are in favor of the second amendment. Okay. 1, 2, 3. All for Mr. Perkins. Against? I guess would be everybody else. Okay, so now we're back to the amendment, the original amendment of adding the amount of $40,000 to the resolution that is currently blank. Mr. Akers?
So I will call the question.
The question is called. There's a second to the call to the question. Okay, Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Akers, seconded by Mr. Anisha. Calling the question. The question is, are we in favor or not in favor of the amendment to the resolution that the county would provide the amount of $40,000 to Bassmasters for 2020? Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification for the new folks, the call to question is we're voting to end discussion. We're not actually voting on the amendment of the 40,000. So what I'm basically asking for is an end of discussion, and then we would go to the vote. So if you want to talk about the amendment of $40,000 or more, you vote no against the call to question. If you want to end the discussion and vote on the 40,000, then you would vote in favor of the call to question. Thank you.
Everybody clear about that? Okay. All in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Aye.
1, 2, hold your hands up, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Question's called. Resolution passes as far as calling the question. So the question is, are we in favor or not in favor of amending the resolution to include $40,000 to Bassmasters for the current year, 2020? Any further discussion? Mr. Aquat?
There is no discussion.
You're right.
Question, right?
Right, you call the question. Right, you're right. So
I was voting.
I beg your pardon?
He was voting, he said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
No, you may not. We're calling.
Just for clarification.
We're calling the roll right now. Mr. Akers, we're calling the roll right now.
Thank you.
Reagan?
This is to vote on the amendment. We're calling the question. Oh, this is
No.
for the
This is for the 40,000, yeah.
Okay,
Amended.
yeah,
Forsythe,
No.
Lightfoot,
No.
Sheridan,
No.
Smithers,
No.
Denisha,
No.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
No.
Hay,
No.
Yako, no, Burke,
No.
Arcot,
Yes.
Terminelli,
No.
Kern,
Yes.
4 yes, 10 no, 1 absent.
Okay, the resolution, the amendment to the resolution fails. So we're back to the resolution, and we need an amount of money if anybody wants to amend it to move this thing any further. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to include the amount of $30,000 supporting the Bassmasters tournament of 2020.
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Fay, second by Mr. Sheridan, Mr. Arquette, Ms. Terminelli, and Ms. Perkins. Is there any discussion? Rita?
No, I'm just seconding it. I was just seconding it.
Okay. I think about everybody seconded it. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Jim?
Is this for the 30,000?
This is for the 30,000. All, I haven't heard any no votes. Am I
I'm a
correct?
no.
Who's a no? John? Mr.
I'm a
Burke
no.
is no, and Mr. Forsythe is no, and Mr. Denisha is no. Okay, the resolution's carried. Moving on
Now, Mr. Chair, now you need a vote, roll call vote.
to have
on
the,
this
you have the amended resolution, right. Right. So with that, we have the resolution on the table with an amount of $30,000 in it. And I would ask, is there any further discussion with respect to this resolution that states that we will give $30,000 to Bassmasters for 2020? Any further discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Need a roll call?
Yes, because it's the budget.
Of course. Roll call, please.
Forsythe,
No.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
No.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Yako,
Yes.
Burke,
No.
Arcot,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Reagan,
yes,
11 yes, 3 no, 1 absent.
Resolution is carried. Do we have any further new business? Seeing none, we have need for executive session.
All
For,
categories, please.
for,
Each category.
okay, litigation, negotiations, personnel, and appointments. Motion to go into executive session by Mr. Forsythe, seconded by Mr. Sheridan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We'll take a couple of minutes to switch. We're back in open session. Mr. Denisha?
Mr. Chairman, I offer for the appointment of the chair of the Environmental Management Council from the start of 12/31/2021, Catherine Bennett.
Is there a second? Second by Rita Curran. And Ms. Terminelli and Mr. Perkins. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Are you opposed, Tony, or are you in favor? Can't hear you.
It's good.
In favor. In favor.
All right, thank you. Okay, that appointment is carried. Mr. Sheridan?
Mr. Chairman, I offer appointment of David Ferris, State Highway 812 Hewelton, to the St. Lawrence County Workforce Development Board, term to expire July 15th, 2023.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Forsythe and Ms. Curran. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The chair's appointments are Carrie Tuttle to the Adirondack Park Agency Local Government Review Board and Rita Curran to the Inter-County Legislative Committee of the Adirondacks. Unless there's any further business, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Beg your pardon?
Move to adjourn.
Second by Mr. Forsythe. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.